Hi and welcome to my channel. Let's make a pistachio raspberry cake. This is the final result. I made it for my friend's birthday, that's why it says 26. But I'm gonna show you how I made it from start to finish. The night before, I started by making the cake part. All the wet ingredients must be room temperature. First, I combined all of the dry ingredients. I started by blending the pistachios into a fine crumb, leaving just a little bit of texture for a nicer bite. I then added all of the dry ingredients except for the sugar. The sugar will be combined directly with the butter. For it to work well, the butter must be nice and soft at room temperature. It took me approximately 7 minutes to blend the butter and sugar together into a nice smooth texture. The next step is to add in the egg whites, which I did incrementally and at a high speed setting, until the cake base was nice and fluffy. Finally, I blended in the sour cream, the vanilla, and almond extracts. I then started gradually mixing in the dry ingredients. Don't make my mistakes and get a bigger mixing bowl right away. The last step is to add in the milk until the dough has this consistency of thick sour cream. I used two 8-inch baking pans and baked the cake for 30 minutes at 350 degrees. The same evening, I prepared the raspberry filling. It's just frozen raspberries, sugar, and cornstarch, boiled over low heat until the first bubbles form. Right after that, you want to take it off and refrigerate. The next morning, right before assembling the cake, I prepared the cream. It consists of cream cheese, heavy cream, sugar, and pistachio paste. During this step, you just want to combine ingredients. It's important not to overmix. Once the cream was combined, I transferred it into piping bags using this little trick I learned a few years ago. You want to place your bag into a cup, or in my case, a shaker, which actually worked even better, and then you just transfer the cream right into it. Use the same method for the raspberry filling. Now it is time to assemble the cake. The pistachio cake sat overnight in the fridge. During that time, the moisture redistributed inside, so it will not be dry. I will be doing 3 layers in the cake, so I cut my 2 rounds into halves. For this cake, I used a 10-inch round base and started by placing a little bit of cream so the bottom layer sticks. I then generously applied a lot of whole milk directly onto the cake base for added moisture, followed by a thin layer of cream. Then, using a piping bag, I created a border along the perimeter of the cake. It is important to take your time and make sure there are no gaps between the cake base and the border, so that the raspberry filling doesn't leak out, and to even out the cake. The raspberry filling is relatively runny, so I first apply it with the piping bag, but then use a spoon to even it out. I repeated this process a total of 3 times, and then used what was left from the pistachio cream cheese to create a base layer, which basically means to cover up any visible cake. Then I put it into the fridge for an hour. While the cake was setting in the fridge, I prepared a fresh batch of cream cheese. This will be used for the final decoration. I decided to make the base of the cake white, so I covered it in a thin layer of white cream. After that, I got to piping. This was only my second time piping, and honestly, I think it turned out pretty good. I was also surprised how well the cream was behaving during this process. It didn't melt and it held shape very well. To create different cream shapes, I used both different tips for the bags as well as just different cuts for the bags themselves. Here I'm making little leaves. And this is the final result. I thought it turned out pretty good. Inside, the cake was just what I wanted. Rich, not too sweet, a little bit tart from the berries, and moist. Like the video if you enjoyed the recipe and follow for more.